Hi,
Hello.
Peter.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing not too bad. Not too bad.
Good, good.
Working my way through the week.
It's Wednesday. Wait, Thursday.
Thursday. Thursday. We're working. I'm one day ahead. One day ahead and working my way
Yeah.
through.
Uh, yeah.
Now with school, we have because it's online, there's a lot of like online lectures, a lot of pre-recorded lectures
Right.
that we have to give. So it's just now kind of figuring out kind of which information to leave on their own and which ones to put
Actually
online
teach.
for them. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just it is a little bit different than if you come in, you have that time in front of them, you can get to more content, you can explain things a little bit more, but you almost have to pick and choose, and that's challenging at times to kind of figure out what, because you really want to set them up at least for the parts that I'm talking about now is just their exams. Like how do you get them set up for the
Yeah.
exam? So
And there's no person-to-person interaction. So you
we
can't, or do you have
we
that?
have Zoom. We have Zoom.
Yeah.
So both universities have Zoom, and I would just use the Zoom a little bit more as them for them to come in, ask questions, go through just a little bit of content together. But that would be it. When we leave it to about an hour or so, being on Zoom for hours is just so challenging. I'm not sure in regards to
Yeah.
COVID in your work. Did you have to go fully on?
I went fully online.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
How is it now, if you don't mind me asking? Still
I
online?
I'm still online. I
Yeah.
just am finding it easier that way.
Right.
I always had much of my clientele prefer to be online, and now it's
Okay.
100%.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Gotcha. So
yeah.
it's been an adjustment, but hasn't been something totally new that you had to bring in.
No, I think
Gotcha.
there was a bit of an adjustment in terms of people weren't doing competitions for a while, so that was a bit different.
Can
But
I,
now
how
it's
about for
changed.
other endurance sports outside of running?
Hmm.
Are you getting the triathletes?
I do get the triathletes as well, and there has been the odd off the book sort of triathlon that's been going on, but
Okay.
not there's most stuff is canceled, so people are just
Gotcha.
doing stuff on their own. Yeah.
And there's no virtual rides. Are there virtual rides for the triathletes? Are there virtual runs or mini tries for them?
I don't know specifically for the triathletes. I know there are for the runners. There's a lot of virtual runs.
Right. That's I
Yeah.
know for the runners as well, but I
Yeah, I haven't
haven't really
heard for
been
the
in touch with
triathletes.
the other endurance athletes to figure out if
Yeah,
there's anything else.
yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to have people that are going to be coming in at various times. We'll see them coming in at various times. I'll just mention for people to ask questions if they have them. We can both read them
Perfect.
at the bottom, so they'll come up. If you see one that I don't get to, please feel free to
Jump
answer it.
in.
Yeah, let's just jump in.
Okay.
We'll have a conversation for people who are on with us right now. I'm happy to have Ashley Leone from the Gazelle Nutrition Lab out of Toronto. www.gazellenutrition.com.
Yep.
It's always nice talking to you. I want to start with, we've talked before, you and I,
Yep. Yep.
outside of Instagram Live, but I'm happy that we're able to jump on Instagram together just based on the timing. So
Absolutely. Yep.
September feels like that transition time in
Mm-hmm.
regards to sports, in regards to coming back to school. And then we have people coming back to their sport and
Mm-hmm.
school from being off with COVID. And some groups are still at home, right? They're still trying to kind of figure out
Some
their way
groups are
with
still
their sport.
transitioning. Yep. Yep.
So it's I think it's always a good time to be talking about nutrition
Mm-hmm.
and preparation, but it feels like the timing is right for us to be doing this. And as people watch through it, they're going to join us, but they're also going to have it on our Instagram page, so they can always kind of go back to it and over the next few weeks just kind of figure it out.
For sure. And
With
if
this
anyone
video.
has any questions, Feel free to email me anytime.
Yeah, and what we will do for this, we'll post it also on YouTube, but put the website on it. And then for our next, if you're okay with it, our next newsletter, maybe post this video. We'll edit it and then
Perfect.
post it, and then put a little something about following up with you, if just in regards to a link to your website and to you.
Sounds great.
Awesome,
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
So why don't we start off with that transition back to sport, back to school, and how possibly nutrition and the preparation part might be different for athletes.
Right. So it's a different time, as you were talking about. So they're coming out of the lockdown stage. Some athletes have been back at it for a couple months. Some athletes are just getting back at it now. Some athletes are hoping to get back to it later. But I think nutrition has sort of taken center stage with everything going on because everyone's trying to be a little bit healthier, boost their immune system. Uh, they've taken more time to do this. We had more time for preparation, but the difficulty right now is people have a little bit more to do than they have had for the last few months.
Right.
They're starting to have to juggle things again. They're starting to have to juggle their sport, maybe their school, maybe back to work. So for nutrition, there's a few things I usually suggest for my athletes during this transition time.
And can you just piggyback up on that?
Yeah,
So what will be some of the, again, different sports, different people in those sports, ages,
yeah,
gender, all those demographic pieces, but what would be just kind
absolutely.
of general pieces?
The general pieces are number one, and you've heard this probably a million times before, but a healthy, balanced diet, nourishing your body with good, wholesome foods is number one on the list. So that means a good balance of all different foods to get your calcium, your vitamin D, your vitamin C, your B vitamins, as well as those big macronutrients you need to fuel. So we're talking fruits and veggies, we're talking dairy or dairy alternatives if you're vegetarian. We're talking meat or meat alternatives, and we're talking sort of whole grains. So healthy eating is number one.
Can I ask, and I'm going to stay on the same kind of track here.
Yeah,
How would, I'm going to try to put myself in the shoes of the athletes, but also kind of think of those young athletes that are part of Headset. So how would people know if they are doing okay or well or not well in regards to their consumption of nutrition?
I think the easiest visual that I always like to send my athletes to is something called the athlete's plate. And it was developed by sports dietitians out of Colorado Springs, where there's an Olympic facility. So if anyone's interested, I would really recommend Googling it. But basically, in a nutshell, it shows you how to proportion your plate. So for every meal, to have what to eat depending on how intense your exercise is on that day. So if it's a rest day versus a moderate training day versus a heavy training day. For example, on a rest day, they're suggesting half your plate should be vegetables, so 2 fistfuls of vegetables, 1 fistful of like a starch, like a potato or a whole grain pasta or rice, and 1 fistful of protein. So that would be sort of your basic plate. So if you're
Right.
having a nice visual representation of each food at each meal and you're eating regularly, then you're probably doing pretty good. Pretty
Awesome.
good. Yeah.
And that athlete's plate, and just so people who are Headset users, so Ashley has sent us before. It's already in your Headset video library, Ashley. Those videos you sent,
Perfect. Yeah.
they're on there. So for our users, go into the video library, look at the nutrition parts. Those are recommendations that you sent over to us, and those are awesome, by the way. So really nice visuals, but it also has a video that goes with it. With, I don't know if it is the nutritionist from the school, but it is a
Right.
nutritionist from one of the U.S. schools that really does a great job of laying that out.
Explaining. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. And again,
Yeah.
Google the athlete's plate, and you're going to find
Yeah.
videos, and there'll be some PDFs there. So that
Yeah.
is fantastic.
Yeah. I think it's just a good basic visual outline of what to do to know that you're getting the basics in.
So I know those videos. People, if they don't, they're going to go out and see it, and it makes sense, total sense. But let
Yeah.
me ask you, it almost seems like it's easy, but I wonder how many people actually follow through
Right.
on it.
Right. It's a struggle.
Can you just kind of
Yeah.
go into just your conversations with the athletes that you work with
Right.
at Gazelle Nutrition?
Right. I find the biggest struggle is it's a struggle because everyone has personal preferences, really, what it comes down to. But a lot of people it's very common that a lot of people don't eat a lot of vegetables. So that piece I find to be the trickiest piece. But so we go through uh, sort of goal setting in terms of small manageable goals. So a number one goal would probably often be adding one vegetable in at each meal, one serving. So serving's like a fist size
Gotcha.
uh, serving of veggies.
And it sounds like just those incremental gains, it sounds like.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or tying the eating of the vegetable to something else that you normally do, so that habit stacking that some people like to do. So if you come home from school, the first thing, grabbing sort of some raw veggies that you've cut up as the first snack that you have when you come in the door, that sometimes works as well.
Which is so cool, right? It's almost that preparation piece. It could be the
Yeah.
nutrition side, it could be the physical skill side, it could be the mental skill side, but it's that preparation for what
Yeah.
is to come, right? So being prepared for when you get home after a busy day at school, be it
Yes.
you're in high school or university, or you're going back to school and you're training,
Yeah.
that having the veggies there ready for when you get back, it's ready for you.
Yeah, so that planning piece is another big one. And we were talking about nutrition, return to sport. The planning is really key. So I have a lot of athletes really plan, like they really plan everything out. They do a full meal plan and everything. And then I have many others are not real planners. But even just writing that grocery list every week, making sure you sort of visually know what you're going to eat for the week so that you have all those foods in place in your fridge and in your cupboard ready to go.
Hey, can I ask now, as we're going from athlete's plate to preparation and just kind of using it, would you use both of those together? Like would the athlete's plate be a visual for when you go shopping as well?
That's a great question. So back in the old days when I did weight management and I worked in healthcare, so we used the shopping cart was an old way of sort of visually seeing if you were shopping right. So in the same way that a lot of your plate should be made up of vegetables, a lot of your shopping cart should be made up of sort of the perishable foods. So you should really limit the internal aisles of the supermarket because that's where you're getting a lot of the refined processed foods.
Right.
Spend a lot
Right.
of time on the outskirts of the supermarket. Lots of veggies should be in your cart. A little bit of dairy, if you have dairy or non-dairy alternative, a little bit of the meat or a meat alternative, and then a little bit of the carb too.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. In regards to now this return to sport a little bit, not going to the return to school, but would the return to sport piece be different now with nutrition as someone maybe has been off for a little bit or goes from not being as active and then goes back to their team and their coaches are pushing them a little bit more than they're used to?
Right. So definitely the nutrition before going and doing your activity, it might be of a little bit of an adjustment because your gut does adjust to eating before activity, and maybe if you haven't been really as active, you haven't been eating before activity, so your gut needs to readjust. So there's
Okay.
that period of time. So start small and work up in terms of
Okay.
your food before exercise.
Okay.
And
So be a little
similarly,
bit patient, it sounds like, right? Sounds like
exactly,
give yourself some time to put this into practice.
exactly. And
Gotcha.
you may not want to, you may be like, oh, before I had soccer practice and I could have, a submarine sandwich before, and that was perfectly fine. And you might find that that's not the case anymore because you're not used to eating directly before exercising.
Okay.
So you may need to start smaller, like with a plain bagel and a half a banana or something like that.
Yeah.
Something bland and light.
So in regards to now the before competition, before practice, could you give us just a few tips in regards to, again, every sport different, every person different in those
Yeah.
sports? What's a general before time wise, and then generally what would be in that sort of meal plan for someone before competition or training?
Okay, great question. So obviously the volumes will differ depending on the intensity and duration of your activity. But in general, 2 to 4 hours before, try and have a large meal, or not a large meal, a meal or a large snack. And it should be low in fiber, high in carbohydrates, and moderate in protein and low in fat as well. So
Okay.
an example might, so if it's a morning practice, an example might be some oats and skim milk and a banana. If it's an afternoon practice, you might be looking at, a pita with a little bit of peanut butter and an apple might work well before.
Okay. And again,
Uh,
I'm going back to that preference piece too that you mentioned that was so important, is that
right.
here's a general kind of
Yes.
what you need, and then to fulfill that, grab those ones and put them in practice that work for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you could be, I have had athletes who really like sushi, for example, because they find it bland and light before practice. So, or noodles or rice or something. So just have some sort of carbohydrate source and so gear it to what you personally like
Gotcha.
and
Gotcha.
tolerate.
Yeah. I love
Yeah.
just those nice keys in regards to making it your own. But here are
Yeah.
general guidelines, and then you make it your own.
Yeah. And then one more tip, I'll just
Yeah,
slide in
please.
here. So some athletes really have a hard time with solid food in their stomach before they work out. So some will do better with liquids because it's digested more quickly. So you might be someone, so a lot of athletes will have a smoothie after practice. You might be someone who does better with a smoothie 2 to 4 hours before practice because you can digest it quickly, use the energy, and it's not sitting in your stomach when
Would
you're training.
that kind of back to workouts and games and school, like is there a tryout? Should people try these things out, or go with one and just like what they did before? Should they try again, or go with what they knew before?
Well, it really depends on what the athlete wants. As long as they were picking something healthy before, there's nothing to say they can't just try using sort of a smaller volume of what they were good with before.
Okay.
If they want to try new things, now is a great time to do it because a lot of us have a long time horizon in terms of when we're competing again. So
Right.
now's the time to trial different foods and see if you can hit, if you weren't totally happy with what you were eating before, see if you can find something that works a bit better.
Lovely. I like that. And especially
Yeah.
if like that long horizon piece, if you have that time and you're back to training and skill building, what a
Yeah.
great opportunity it is to
Huge
figure out what
opportunity.
works.
Yeah,
Yeah, very nice.
absolutely. Yeah. Um, and then the other piece is the recovery after you exercise. So that's a bit of the change with getting back to activity. You're pushing your body probably a little bit more than you have been. So the recovery piece is even more important.
Could we get to the recovery piece?
Absolutely.
Right,
Yep.
but
Yep.
can we put in just the hydration piece for pre
Yep.
as well? So almost kind of go
Yep.
pre-nutrition, pre-hydration, and then let's go to the post-game, post-competition training stuff.
Absolutely. So hydration before you hit the field or you go out for a run or whatever your game is really important. So making sure you're well hydrated and not I always say not to try and you're like cramming for a test. You don't have it all at once all before. Try and
Okay.
space your hydration throughout the day. So carrying a water bottle with you and hydrating, and then you need probably at least a cup or two of water in the couple hours before you exercise.
Is there a rough metric or somewhere where people can understand based on their body composition, or how much sweat, or how much, like would it be different for different people before competition or
Uh,
training?
yes, it's different for different people and it's different for different days. So a
Oh, okay.
hotter day or a more humid day, if you're sweating more, you would need a little bit more, particularly during the activity, but also before.
Okay.
And then a cooler day, you would need less. And then a cold day, you would again need a little bit more.
Okay. So on the cold day, you need a little bit more.
You do.
Okay. Okay.
Because if you're increased respiration, you're losing a little bit more water.
Okay.
So yeah, so anything with temperature regulation will affect your water needs.
The electrolytes kind of piece, and I'm sure you get this all the time, but it's still, I
Yeah.
think, helpful for all of our athletes to kind of know this piece. Do we always add it, sometimes add it?
Oh, so the elect you only need water if it's
Okay.
for an hour or less. If you're going over an hour, especially if you're intensely exercising, adding the electrolytes is helpful.
Okay. Perfect. I said we're going to go post. Do we go during, or is it too complicated to go through in a short period of time during?
Well, I can keep it simple.
Okay.
So for most athletes, water's enough during the practice. So especially most of the student athletes, unless you're outside and say you have a long practice, it's a couple hours long, and then I would start adding like a sports drink to your regime. And it doesn't have to be commercial. You can make your own sort of half juice, half water, and a pinch of salt. We'll
Would
get you
be
there.
okay.
Yeah,
You can have a
yeah.
home brew that you can kind of
You
have.
can
Doesn't
have
have
a
to be.
home brew if you're not comfortable with using a commercial sports drink.
And would the pre-piece in regards to how hot it is, it's going to be, would that also be into the mix during, or would it be enough to just say duration of 2 hours plus, then you start to, or would the heat part and the
If
environment
the
influence?
the heat does influence it, so you for a couple of reasons, your sweat rate will increase and your carbohydrate utilization will increase in the heat as well. So you need a bit more carbs. So the sports drinks provide the carbs. So anything more than 60 to 90 minutes,
Okay.
you're going to need that sports drink
Okay.
on
Okay.
board.
Such great
Yeah.
tips in regards to just, okay, here I am. I'm an athlete. I know I'm different, but here's a general rule of thumb that I can start with or work with and then make it my own.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Great.
Awesome.
Yeah, and one more tip I would say for if it's really hot out, there has been some evidence to say if you make sort of an ice drink and drink that before you go outside, will help your feelings, your perceived exertion during the event, and help with you
Okay.
feeling a little bit better during the
Nice.
event.
That's really
Yeah,
nice.
so that's a little trick to add.
Very nice. So, and we have some people on with us, and I mentioned this earlier, but if you just joined, if you have questions for Ashley or myself, please feel free to put it into the comment section of Instagram, and we'll get to it along the way. And for people who are just jumped in, so Ashley is created it's her own company, Sport Nutrition. It's called Gazelle Nutrition, gazellenutrition.com. You got some great stuff on there as well that people can kind of jump on and take a look at as well. But it's that transition to post. So we did
Yes,
pre, during, now we have
post.
the post comp
Right,
or training.
right. So what to do nutritionally?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's particularly with the strength-based sports, the protein becomes a little bit more important post, but for all athletes. So what you're doing when you're really working hard is you're breaking down your muscles, you're building your muscles. So you need to have some protein on board after you exercise. So I would say within the hour after exercise, a nice recovery snack. And it could be something that has a nice combination actually of carbohydrates and protein. So chocolate milk is a common one for a lot of athletes. So 500 mils of chocolate milk is sort of a common snack. But some athletes like to go with sort of like a nut butter and a fruit, like peanut butter and an apple, or a half a sandwich and a fruit, or even if you're dairy free, sort of soy milk, a flavored soy milk will work as well.
Are I'm thinking about athletes as we're talking, and when I talk about mental skills, I'll bring up the nutrition piece. And when athletes are kind of under, I guess, under stress or they're in competition, but even between periods or between events, they say a lot that, I'm not hungry. I'm
Hmm.
not, I don't feel like it.
Right.
And I'm sure you hear it. I hear it just a little
Yeah.
bit that
Yeah.
they gas out, right? I'm
Right.
exhausted, right? And
Right.
any little tips, reminders, suggestions, or things for athletes to remember that they need to do this nutrition wise?
You know what? I think the number one thing is planning ahead
Okay.
of time. So you want to practice your competition nutrition ahead of time and plan for what you're going to eat. So that you're going to be nervous on race day or competition day. So it's easy, it's something to push aside because you don't have to focus on it. But sometimes, or a lot of times, they're feeling like they have to focus on it because they haven't planned in advance. They don't want to take the mental energy to figure out what to eat. So practice what you're going to eat, plan what you're going to eat on competition day, and then put it into practice.
Yeah.
Because there's tons of research out there to show that athletes perform better when they have the nutrition on board and the hydration on board that they need to
Yeah.
get them through whatever their activity is.
Yeah. And we know each other through a marathon, the Toronto Marathon in Toronto.
Right,
And we come in once a year, you and I, and we do talks, nutrition for you, mental skills for me, and we'll be around each other. And I always hear you with those questions, right? Because
right,
I'm just interested, and it's a
yeah,
lot of focus, right? Before time, what do I do? And I have heard you say that many times, right? In
right,
regard,
yeah,
you got to plan. You
yeah,
have to have the right nutrition at the right time during your race or your practice run or your run for the week or runs for the week.
yeah,
And those athletes who I know who have worked with you
mm-hmm.
say the planning part is one of the most important things for them in regards to results,
Yes.
nutrition wise.
Absolutely. And for the motivation for a marathon, for example, what they found is if athletes optimize their carbohydrate during the race, so they follow through their plan, they optimize the carbohydrates, this can improve their marathon time by 3%, which doesn't sound like a lot, but for a 3-hour marathon, that's 5 minutes. So that's just with the nutrition. That's huge. There's so much training you have to do to
Yes.
improve your marathon time by that much. So just
Yeah.
planning and putting that plan into practice will
Yeah.
get you results.
And,
So
and again, you and I have that running piece. You are a runner as well. So you kind of practice what you preach to other people that you have as runners. But
right.
runners, they love time, and rightfully
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
And those 5 minutes, when you think about it, means so much to an athlete who's a runner.
Right.
But I would say that feeling good at the end of a soccer match
Yes.
is probably pretty important for a soccer player.
Yes.
Former hockey player, feeling good at the end of a game as a goalie,
Yeah.
pretty darn important, right? So
Yeah.
those
There's been
numbers,
those numbers are good. There's so much research out there, or also on soccer players and carbohydrates. They've done some research on even carbohydrate switches. So, taking sports drink in their mouth, swishing it around, and spitting it out improves their skills and their perceived exertion during the game, their time to the ball. So that's just with swishing and spitting it out. So if they actually take in the carbohydrates, it also improves their endurance, and especially at the tail end of the game where a lot of them run out of gas. So yeah, so it's really working with them
and
to
it
see
becomes,
those results.
as I'm hearing you, it becomes that habit, right?
Yeah,
And you mentioned it, the perceived part, but that perceived part for nutrition or mental skills, if it's something that's helping you out, then it becomes real,
right,
right?
right.
And that's so important. And there's the science that back up the real part to it.
Yeah,
Same with mental skills. But if you can perceive yourself to feel a certain way, you
yes,
are, that's a huge battle won.
huge battle. Yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna transition a little bit to mental skills because you are the nutritionist for athletes,
Hmm.
but you are the athlete as well. So I want to
Right.
kind of pick your brain on the mental skills piece. What do you hear from just your clients? What do they talk about mentally to you in regards to being a performer?
So, I mean, they talk to me mentally about the actual performance in the race. So obviously, there's the nerves involved, and the negative self-talk is what they talk to me a lot about. So they talk about how they work, say, with you for positive self-talk. But a lot of them, nutrition wise, are nervous around their gut tolerance
Right.
during their activity because they've experienced gut upset, and that's in the past sometime, and that has maybe caused them not to perform in the way that they wanted to perform.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Can I ask you mentally? So it almost sounds like because of what's happened to them before, you
Mm-hmm.
have to help them feel confident and comfortable that they're going down a path that is beneficial to them.
Exactly.
Can I ask what are little things that you talk about or has worked for you?
So, it takes us back really, Peter, to the planning again. So, we talk about how planning can help them feel more confident on race day or on game day.
Right.
So if they have the plan in place, as we were talking about before, they have one less thing to worry about. They do talk a lot to me about sort of the positive self-talk that they're using. And then it's sort of reaffirming positive outcomes that occur sort of in their stepwise competition to their main events.
Right. I
Yeah,
love that. And
yeah,
just that mind body connection that you're talking about. Like, I just see this routine of nutrition and hydration with those positive affirmations or that
right,
reflection piece or that controlling piece, right? So, like, even outside of the sport that we're talking about, running or endurance sports, like even
right.
for hockey players, I'll tell them
Yeah,
that it's when you come off, you have to have a routine with hydration, with your self-talk,
right.
with your preparation for next shift. And it just feels like when someone has those routines down or figured out, they can just focus on their performance.
And they also feel like they can control the things they're focusing on the things they control to get the outcome that they're looking for. So
Yeah.
nutrition is this controllable piece that helps on that journey.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
same could be said, and to link it with the mental skills piece. These are
yeah,
things that you can control, that you need to prepare for. And if you could link it with an action that is nutrition based too,
yeah,
hydration based, that just continues that routine,
right.
which is
Perpetuates
fantastic.
the healthy behavior.
Most definitely.
Yeah,
Most definitely.
yeah.
Is there anything for you as an athlete, kind of switching gears a little bit from the sport nutrition side to just the mental skill side for you as an athlete? Is there anything that works for you as a runner, for you specifically, that works mentally in your preparation?
Mentally in my prep, I think what works for me best is actually during the race. I find something during the race that I can just repeat, sort of a 2 or 3 word, sort of positive thing that I can say, like go with the flow or something like that, which I actually found on your site as well. So you talk a
Okay,
little bit about
great.
mantras while you're running. So if there's that repetition, it just keeps you focused and it keeps you thinking positively rather than negative self-talk, like I'm so tired or yeah,
And we're talking
yeah,
about, for people just joining us, we're talking about uh, specifically now is just marathon running or endurance sports where you know that you are physically going to be depleted of those resources.
yeah,
And that's when the mental skills with the physical skills come into play. Because as you mentioned, as a runner for, you've been for years, right? That
right,
you
yeah,
need those parts to your mental game at certain times to be at your very best,
yes,
which is so important. And if you can kind of marry that nutrition or hydration part as you run with these mantras or self-talk that are very inspirational and controllable, right? So
yeah,
you're just not pie in the sky, things are going to be okay. That's not specific
yeah,
to what you're going through. It's deliberate, right? Here's the 36 kilometer. I'm going to
yeah,
hydrate and I'm going to have this mental skill, right? The 10th
yeah,
kilometer, the 39th kilometer, if you're running in Canada,
yeah,
the 20th mile along the
right.
way, right? And that's where,
And it helps break it down too. It helps break the larger goal into smaller goals, having those nutrition goals in between. And so it helps you get through that longer duration
Yeah.
effort. Yeah.
We have also kind of went back and forth between Gazelle Nutrition and Headset, and you've been helpful to us. Like if people know Headset, they know that we have mental wows, but a few of our mental wows are nutrition based and connect the mind body experience. How do you think athletes can implement or use a program or system like Headset in regard to their planning?
I think it will. A headset's great because it gives the athletes the opportunity to figure out where room for growth is, and really focus in on that. And it gives, so say it was nutrition, and say it was, competition nutrition was their area that they need to get in tune. There's worksheets there for them to work through it and set realistic goals, and it gives them a sort of a roadmap,
Yeah.
and feedback, and the videos that sort of support the learning, that make it a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
like that part, and I know you outside of Instagram, right? So I know
yeah,
that you do this in your work, like that roadmap for you and your group members. So there are our nutritionists at Gazelle Nutrition. That's what it is. It's here's where you're at. This is where you want to get to. Here's
right,
that roadmap that is yours for success. That personalized piece
yeah,
really comes up when we talk together. I really find that.
right, right, yeah. Keeping it individual is really important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I agree. We're going to start to kind of wrap things up here, but if people have questions in regards to nutrition, right, that you want to ask Ashley, please feel free. Put in the comment box. And
Happy to answer any questions at all. Yeah.
in between time, if there are any questions along the way, we'll wait for them to come in. But any kind of your own website or other kind of links or resources for people nutrition wise that might be helpful?
So I would say you can check out my website for sure, gazellenutrition.com. The other websites that I find really helpful are the Australian Sports Commission has a great
Okay.
website with lots of resources on it. They're sort of tops in sports nutrition in the world. And there are a few other good nutrition websites out there. So you can just look at the basic ones from the sort of Dietitians of Canada and that kind of thing as well to get
Awesome.
some good
Awesome.
info.
And once again, your website, a lot of helpful information, gazellenutrition.com. Also, you've helped us out at Headset. So if you're a Headset user or are thinking about it, you'll get some nutrition pieces that are tailored to you that go along with your mental skills. So that mind body connection is so important overall. But
Absolutely.
I really took away those preparation pieces that you mentioned
Right,
today.
right. That connects really well with the mind body as well,
For
keeping things
sure.
planned.
For
Yeah,
sure. And we have access to be able to transcribe our talk. And I think I'm going to try to, or someone at Headset will try to kind of break it down from what you spoke about, that we might be able to put it into nice digestible pieces
perfect.
for them, and then bring it back to your website. So if they want to dig deeper and get some professional support, they
They
definitely have
can
it.
do that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
Hey, we haven't had any questions. Any questions that you have for me, or any thoughts in regards to returning back to sport, or might be a time
Oh,
for
I'm
us
just
to?
wondering how you're finding the return back to sport with your athletes.
It's a
Yeah,
challenge.
yeah.
It feels like there's a little bit of a turn now. It's still that return to play piece, and believing that we will get somewhere. That's the tough part, right? In regards to what is coming up in the horizon, where we really don't know what that horizon is. It's very tough for athletes.
It's
So
tough not to have a solid goal.
it is, and
Yeah,
there's some good coaches along the way who will put those goals in place. I will mention to my athletes, really being able to put goals in place but I kind of see it like you, that silver lining is that here's a great opportunity to work on your skills, including
Hmm.
your mental skills.
Yeah.
So when you get back and you are in your sport, be it at university, high school, pro, is that you're ready. You're still going to have challenges, but once those challenges come, you're able or equipped to take them on because you've done the work, right?
Yes.
And that's important.
Yeah.
And like you said, you feel like you've done the work. So it's that perceived control, that perceived confidence and belief that you can, even though it's been a while, you've still been working on it. And that's where it's important to do the nutrition work and the mental skills work along the way.
And I feel like if they've been doing the work, even in the absence of competition, that should give them extra confidence when it comes to competition time, that they're committed and they've put everything into their sport that they can put into their sports,
Yeah,
and that's really a sign of mental toughness right there.
most definitely. Most definitely.
Yeah,
And understanding that it's going to be challenged, just like you mentioned with the nutrition part.
absolutely.
Hey,
Yeah,
you're getting back after not playing for a few months. It's going to take time, but if you believe that you can take on the obstacles,
yeah.
you're not searching, right? And you know this so well in regards to your own clients and you as an athlete. Is just
Hmm.
when you're searching in real time and you don't have the answers, it's a tough position to be in.
It really is.
It
Yeah,
really is. And I think
yeah,
you've been there, I've been there. I think we've all been there. But if you can prepare for it, you're not going to be there as often and you'll have consistency.
yes, yeah,
And without saying that word between us, when you are prepared nutrition wise, you're going to have more consistent performance.
yes,
Yep.
absolutely. It's really one of the easiest things you can do. It's difficult and easy at the same time.
And
Yeah,
that's where,
yeah,
oh my goodness. And that's where we can probably
yeah,
say IG live number 2, press the pause button and keep on going because
yeah.
the things that we're talking about just sound so simple.
They found some until you actually try and
Until you kind
do
of
that
figure out
healthy
your
diet.
nutrition
Yeah,
and
yeah,
you
yeah,
go, and that's where, and
yeah.
not to get off kind of pace here and where we're going, but I teach an exercise site course. And I often tell them, I wish this class was in January because people talk about their nutrition and their mental skills a lot after January 1st or leading
Right,
up to it. And
right.
then the amount of people who follow through, it's very few. And it's just so challenging. And that's what makes it the challenge is us within this environment, right? So it might sound simple, but to really do it well, you need to have a plan. And I will also say, having support along the way from a nutritionist, a mental skills or mental performance
Right.
consultant, or an app goes a really long way.
Goes a really long way. Someone to support your, even having a friend doing it at
Yes.
the same time as you, a fellow athlete wanting to
Right.
change their nutrition at the same time as you. Someone where you can, I couldn't figure out my nutrition today. I had a hard time figuring out planning this week. They can give you some tips that work for them because they're in the same boat as you if they're close to you. So they can often give you tips that perhaps other people wouldn't be able to give you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's just a great tip in regards to just kind of bringing that mind and body component together with that social support piece because that goes a long way. And you have to prepare for that too. You have to know that when I'm going on this journey, it's who am I going to bring along with me, or
yeah,
who am I going to go to when I
yeah,
have questions or when I have challenges because you might not reach your nutrition goals some weeks. You might not reach your mental skills goals, but having someone strategically there to help you and for you to help them goes a really long
yeah,
way. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for this. I know we've talked about this for a long time in regards to
You're
having
very
you on.
welcome. Thanks so
You,
much for having me.
you're welcome. You've been such a huge help to us at Headset, and we'll continue to kind of link up the two companies because we know that the nutrition part is so important to someone's success. So
Amazing.
thank you so much.
Happy to help and looking forward to it. And as I said before, if anyone has questions they think about that they don't want to have me talk about right now, feel free to email me and I can respond there.
Yeah, and we'll put the this video together with your information. So we'll put this together in another video. Well, it'll be on Instagram, but I think we got to repurpose it a little bit to put
Perfect.
your information on there as well so people can go directly to you.
Perfect. Great. Great to
Awesome.
see you,
Thank you
Peter.
so much. Have a great rest of the day.
You too.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.